I broke down this ChatGPT that I was playing with because, I'm a writer. People said, "Oh, it can write scripts. It can do your outlines." It was like, "Well, let me see. I could use a shortcut. I could use a shortcut." So I go in there, and I'm like, "Let me feed it something I've already written because I don't want to depend on technology. I want to know what it knows first." So I'm testing it out, kicking the tires. I went through the whole thing and printed out the back and forth and read it on the air last week. Y'all could go to my YouTube channel to see what that looks like. And then it hit me. This is dangerous because I could literally feed it. It was feeding me back the things I was feeding it and correcting itself and apologizing. But I was like, I could give it bad information and it would say, "I'm sorry, you're right," and give me the bad information back. And I know people are doing that. And I was like, this is not good. Also, if we aren't in it, when I say we, I'm not just talking about Black people. I'm talking about people of culture, people of knowledge, people of freedom, people of self. If you're not in something, feeding it, and it went to Kenya, the chat GPT people, it's Open AI is the name of the company. They went to Kenya and paid $2 an hour to have farms of folk feeding it data. But it was still feeding data based on, to me, biased bias. Because even in Kenya, what's the language there? English? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm happy to have this. What do you want me to do, boss? Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter about the race of the people. It doesn't mean it's going to be culturally conscious. And clearly it's not. And I'm going to get to a lot of AI stories today. So you're in tech. And it is, to me, so important that we stop remixing and making things better and start creating from scratch. And I know it's possible because you can't. Jeff, what's his name? Not Jeff Zuckerberg. No, the other one, Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, wasn't uber wealthy when he built Facebook. He was a college student and got a bunch of his friends in a room in the dorm to code, and that was how they built it. We can't do that at North Carolina A&T. We can't do that at Florida Memorial, which just got a contract, or they're doing something. They just launched a new tech innovation center at Florida Memorial University in Florida. We can't, I don't know, there's a bunch of A&Ts, a lot of tech schools that got tech in their names. Tuskegee can't build out a lab. I just feel like we're missing something. And it's like we wait. It's like it's like we wait for orders from somebody so then we'll come in and help make it better. But why aren't we innovating? And I just want to know what your thoughts are, somebody in tech.
Karen, I agree with you on it. I mean, you have to have inclusion at inception. That's just point blank, period. Or otherwise you build bias into the machine. It's simple. It is as simple as that. And I think it's one of those instances too, where in all honestly, Jack and Jill America has to come back home to the village, right? And what I think about that when I say that is, I mean that we have all of these brilliant minds that have to then come back and spend some time at A&T. We have to come back and spend some time at Spelman and at Tougaloo College in Mississippi, right? And start to bring our dollars and build those things there. We can't just say, oh, well, it's going to let one of the billionaires do it. There's enough Black millionaires that Black millionaires could say, let's pool our millions together, because we've talked about pooling millions of dollars together to make more money. Let's pool millions of dollars together to build community and build our own technology and build our own intellectual property, right? And so I think that there's a little bit of that is like we're following the white model, even sometimes when we do get our own, we say, okay, I'm gonna put a fund together. I'm gonna put a fund together and I'm gonna do this the way the white model is modeled, right? Whereas I think we've got to reimagine the way that we come to technology and innovation and building these things out. Because the reality is that when you have something that's shiny and sexy and new, like AI and generative AI, what happens is that people say, well, let's see all of the great things it'll do. Let's not put shackles on it. Let's just see everything it'll do. And we can ignore the bias, ignore the safety cautions, if that means that we can get to all of the other things that are happening next. But you need people in those spaces to say, don't ignore the bias. Don't ignore the safety. I don't want this to put my children in danger. I don't want this to put people who don't have access to technology in danger, right? I don't want this to start figuring out new ways to hurt people, kill people, or build in more poverty or more disconnect, right? And so you got to have inclusion at inception. And that's the scary part about this technology.
All right. So there's two different ways I want to go at this. All right. First, I'm going to give you the bad news. Black taxpayers, Black people who pay taxes are 3 times as likely to be audited by the IRS. Do you know why?
Why?
Algorithms. Findings suggest that they didn't have enough IRS when human beings did the auditing. It was fine, but we just Biden administration just hired, I think, 87,000 new IRS agents, and the people are like, oh no. Well, you should be like, oh yes, because human beings are less likely to discriminate against you than the algorithms, right? So what they found is they started using algorithms, which you would think are agnostic, right? They're just picking people based on, the data, but who's putting the data in? And if the people entering the data come with the bias, even if they're in Kenya, even if they're in Tennessee, Memphis, even if they're in your neighborhood and they look like you, the bias is in the system. The bias is in the institution. The bias is built in, is baked into the soil. So how can you avoid it? And this is proof. 3 times more likely to be audited because of algorithms. Drew McCaskill, this is scary. This is scary.
Really
the computer. This is a study done by Stanford University, University of Michigan, the University of Chicago, and the Treasury Department. They came together and they found that the bias is in the algorithms, the automated system to select who gets audited. They pick Black people. Okay. Number one.
Wow.
Yes. Scary. Another scary thing. An AI algorithm designed for child welfare could have the potential for discrimination, and now the Justice Department is looking into it. So you think, okay, again, child welfare, who's disproportionately impacted by that? And that's not by accident, okay? Because the truth of the matter is they don't go and investigate so-called melanemic neighborhoods, because I know this for a fact. Neighborhoods like Hoboken in New Jersey, they don't report their crimes because it would drive down their property value. So if you're not reporting your crimes, you're also not reporting child abuse. You're not reporting a whole lot of other things. So people not coming into your neighborhoods checking to see. But our crimes get reported because mostly our children are in public schools, not in the private schools where they have a relationship with the family. This is all an intricate web of I don't even want to call it racism because it's so much deeper than that, right? It's systemic. So if you think about that, right, our children are subjected to schools that teachers are forced to report if you see anything. But just like crime, if you are 6 times, which Black neighborhoods are more likely to be policed schools, you're more likely to be policed. Kids in NYU and these other schools are not being rated for drugs, even though you know where to go for drugs. You know to go to Bobby's room for drugs. Those campuses are teeming. I went to one of them, teeming with cocaine. I was in somebody's dorm room, had a pile of cocaine on the mirror. I sat for like an hour and helped him roll it into dollars or whatever, cut it for him or whatever. I never used it, didn't smoke it, but I was like, this is interesting. Okay, so what are we doing here? The campus drug dealer who was on campus, all white school. We had 57 Black kids. I'm there helping the campus drug dealer with the cocaine. I was young. I ain't know. I was 18. That said, I knew better. I knew it was wrong, but I was like, I'm not taking it. Not my problem. That said, Drew McCaskill, this is scary. The Justice Department, they're scrutinizing a controversial artificial intelligence tool used by the Pittsburgh area Child Protective Services, following concerns that it could result in discrimination against families with disabilities in particular. The bias and the transparency issues about this opaque algorithm that is designed to assess a family's risk level. How do you do that? What information are you putting in to assess risk to begin with? At the inception, there's a problem.
There's a problem. Karen, think about how the disconnect is. I talked to you about earlier when I said, like, me saying that to this largely white audience about, what you don't understand about how my life works when I leave out of this space with you, right? Is think about all of those people who are building those algorithms and testing those algorithms, who have absolutely no concept of what the lived experience is of people who don't look like them and who didn't grow up like them. Even down to not even if you have a problem with including air quotes race and ethnicity into it, just even the concept that many of those people have no idea of what life in rural America is like, right? And so those people are largely left out of that, out of like how these concepts work, right? And so you got to think, you got people building this that have no earthly idea about culture or lived experience of anybody other than themselves, and what that does to these systems that try to look for normal. When your definition of normal or abnormal is racist, biased, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, all of the above, right? Because there's some bias in almost every single one of them, right? I talk about this all the time, is that one of the biases that I have had to check for myself is it is hard for me sometimes to not use Republican as a proxy for racist in certain situations, right? And so I have to consistently be on the watchtower and check myself for that, right? And so I go back to
well, that actually is true. No, I'm just
I've been sending everybody your
That's
update
true.
with Jared on the Mississippi water crisis. I send that to everybody I know. Is like, yo, you got to listen to this about where we are with the Mississippi water crisis, largely because there's progress being made. And I sent everybody all the articles about the water crisis, like, yo, you got to call somebody about this Jackson situation, right? Your conversation with Jared and talking about that, I was like, okay, you know what? I may have to renew my mind about a couple of things, right? But I'm still going to be watching. Because you got to be consistent with me before I trust you.
Right. And what you're talking about for people, Cindy Hyde, whatever her name is, the senator that we didn't like, and we rather have Mike Espy, but she was instrumental in helping to get that funding. And this is the reason why, you press everybody. Martin Luther King was like, I don't care who's in office. You go, all right, LBJ, I'm going to make you do it, because everybody, wants something and you negotiate. That's what politics is all about. We've turned it into, all kinds of things, but it's still about resources getting to people and people wanting things to release the resources. So you just got to navigate that, because otherwise no one gets anything. So we're going to keep having this conversation. Drew McCaskill is here.